Okay, part two of the 5th edition Player's Handbook. Okay, so we got the Paladin class, and if you can focus, the Paladin class. And if you look, they start casting spells at 2nd level. This is something only really high level Paladins could do in 1st edition. Now they can do it at 2nd level. That's ridiculous. And they have a whole bunch of abilities. Too many to keep track of. And the different variations of Paladin. And we have Ranger. Rangers I liked in 1st edition. I thought 1st edition had the best Rangers. The 2nd edition ones were kind of interesting. But in 3rd edition, I didn't like them that much. Actually, 3.5. I heard 3.0 Rangers were better than 3.5 ones. But we got a whole bunch of complicated stuff for them. Okay, Rogue. I guess Rogue is supposed to be the substitute for Thief. Yeah. Thief should have been, from the beginning, have been called the Dungeon Crawler class, because the original Thieves, their abilities were things that all players were doing before this class was invented. And then when they came in the class, it was supposed to be just better at stuff that everybody does. And so they were supposed to be better. And now, once you had the Thief class, only thieves were attempting these things. The sneak attack used to be that they do double damage at starting at 1st level, and then it would increase to triple, then quadruple. Here, their sneak attack only does 1d6. Well, that sucks. And yeah, it used to be if you had a longsword, you could do 2d8 with a sneak attack. So that's pretty sucky. And they get 8-sided hit dice, not 6-sided like every edition. What's up with that? And so different variations, including a spellcasting variant. And Sorcerer. That was something invented in 3rd edition, which here, that in 3rd edition, sorcerers knew fewer spells than wizards, but they could cast them more often. So there are different variations here of sorcerer, including the wild magic sorcerer. Okay, and then the warlock class. This is a new class. I've heard rumors this came from 4th edition, which I was never able to get hold of. But you know, they get 4 spells at 20th level, only 4? That seems kind of restrictive. I tried playing these the time I tried to play 5th edition. I didn't understand it. Even after playing, I couldn't understand it. Okay, so let's get to the wizard. The wizard was my favorite class in 1st edition, but the way people DM'd it in 3rd edition made me pick fighter as my favorite edition because I wanted something simple, and it was just the DMs in 3rd edition were just too vicious in nerfing my abilities. So as I see, they know 3 cantrips and 2 1st level spells at 1st level. Now, cantrips, there's like 0 level spells in 3rd edition, but it doesn't say how many they can cast a day. It says they know 3. So that's a confusing bit. And there's all these variants of it. It's a lot more complicated than the 2nd edition specialist rules. Here, Schools of Necromancy, School of Illusion. Yeah, that's something in 2nd edition killed illusionists. That was a popular class in 1st edition that nobody ever ran again after 2nd edition came out. So here's someone playing the things, and here's the dwarf alphabet. I would expect the dwarf alphabet to be Norse runes, not this made-up one. And the Elvish script I would expect to be Tengwar from Tolkien. And Draconic script. That doesn't look like the kind of script that dragons would use. I don't know what they're talking about here. Okay, so now we get to character backgrounds. And, that was something that in first edition you rolled a secondary skill, and but you made up your own background. And secondary skills were only optional, but I had fun once with a player who was playing a dwarf, and he rolled Forester for a secondary skill, so he came up with this elaborate background about how he was a dwarf raised by elves in the forest. But here, you have to pick one. And which one you pick depends on your class. There's Acolyte, Charlatan, Criminal, Entertainer, Hermit, Noble, Sage, Sailor, Soldier, Urchin. That seems restrictive. I like being able to make up my own background, not being shoehorned into what I pick. So here's starting equipment. It shows you what some of the weapons look like, which is helpful. That was a problem with first edition. And here's a list of the weapons. And whether they do piercing, slashing, or bludgeoning damage, which is relevant if you're fighting a skeleton or certain other kinds of creatures. And some about the properties, how much damage they do, how much they cost, all on one page there. There's some pictures of equipment. One thing struck me really strange is these different packs of equipment pre-picked for you. Let's see here, like the herbalism kit, or the forgery kit, the disguise kit. That one of the big things about old editions of D&D was the player shopping. Shopping was tedious to me when I was first playing, but I realized with time that it was really important for the players to pick their own equipment, so that when I need a rope and I didn't bring one, they would not have it. Okay, so got lots of stuff, and multi-classing is, I had to read this as confusing because multi-classing means something different to me. There's a lot of words in here that mean something different to me than the way they mean. Multi-classing here is like dual classing in the old editions. And what is this? This is feats. Supposedly feats are optional. But I would submit that all those different abilities that are inflicted on the players in their character descriptions are de facto feats. Feats that you have to pick. You have to pick feats from this list depending on what archetype you want to play. And here's some more feats if you want more feats than that. Okay, so the next part is more on playing here. And ability checks, which we did a lot starting in second edition. Social action, food and water, combat. Yeah, I tried to read through all this, but I already know how to play D&D, and reading through this, I just got confused about how to play it. What is it? So there's spells. And each class, one of the things I liked about this edition is you had all the druid spells in one place, listed in order by level, so you could just open your book up to the first level spells, and there they were all listed. But here you have so many different classes that can use spells that it does make more sense to have them just be in alphabetical order like they started doing with 3rd edition. So I'll go to all the spells here. Okay. Yeah, so after the spells we get to the appendix, which there's some conditions, what happens if you're grappled, and the gods of the multiverse. These are some imaginary gods of different pantheons and their powers, and if you want to do some more historical Earth pantheons like Greek or Celtic, here they are. The planes of existence. That the diagram of the planes was a source of great speculation for me. I really liked it in 1st edition, so I'm glad to have this in here. But then, in the player's handbook, they have the stat blocks of a bunch of, it starts off to be animals, but it gets into monsters. The monsters that should not be in the player's hands, like pseudo-dragons and quasids and skeletons. This should not be information that the players have access to. It should be in the monster manual. There's a thing of inspirational reading, which should be updated since there are a lot of fantasy stuff that were not out when the older editions came out. And quite an extensive index here. Now here's a player character sheet, which is 3 pages long, but the 3rd page is spells. So if you're not a spellcaster, you don't need that page. But most of the classes can now cast spells. So you advertise this as being something that players of all editions would like. And I fell for it, and I paid money to get this. So you got me. You tricked me into paying money to buy this thing, which is incomprehensible. I've tried for years. Every once in a while I pull it out and try to figure out how to play 5th edition, and I can't make sense of it. It's just too much detail. I just want to run a simple to run character. I don't want all this complication. So you got me. You tricked me. And I bought this with the idea of possibly giving it to my stepson. But after looking through this, I decided, no, it doesn't make a good beginner's edition. Reprints of this is a better option, I think. Gygax wanted this to be a game for the ages. They didn't have to keep making editions. They could have just expanded 1st edition. It could have improved the art over the years, improved the layout, while keeping the same basic game, but they didn't. They keep doing edition after edition, and now I feel like I've fallen behind. I've fallen out of a thing. I can't play D&D with all these people who are playing 5th edition because I don't understand it. And I don't want to invest in more books because it's been out so many years. I'm afraid 6th edition is coming out soon. And I don't want to invest a whole bunch in 5th edition now. So here we are. I'm too old to play D&D with the young whippersnappers.